Hi guys, I'm Johnny Mercado and this is a 3-part tutorial for Eevee. In this first part, we are going to discover the best feature for Blender 2.8 related to architecture visualization. That feature is a probe called Irradiance volume and it makes Eevee able to fake global illumination. It's a key player when we talk about ArcViz. So let's dive in and find how it works. So first, let's define what irradiance volume is. So let's imagine we have a small room with a window from where the light will come in. By default, in Eevee, the occluding geometry will not be taken under consideration and the room will be directly lit by the light. But if we add a irradiance volume probe and bake the indirect lighting, the probe will capture the diffuse lighting in order to light the objects that are inside its volume with indirect light bounces. So let's check some of the probe settings. We have the distance. The influence zone is defined by the distance parameter and object scaling. For irradiance volumes, the influence inside the volume is always 100%. The influence decays only outside of the volume. So let's check the Falloff. The Falloff is the percentage of the influence distance during which the influence of a probe fades linearly. The intensity factor of the recorded lighting. Making this parameter anything other than 1.0 is not physically correct. So the resolution. Spatial resolution for irradiance volumes is determined per probe. The local volume is divided into a regular grid of the specified dimensions. One irradiance sample will be computed for each cell in this grid. If you add 4 probes in the x-axis and 2 in the y-axis, this is what you will get. Clipping defines the near and far clip distances when capturing the scene. Clipping distances are applied at the sample's position and not at the grid origin. So now we are going to talk about visibility. For every grid point, a small variance shadow map is rendered. This visibility cube map is used to reduce light leaking behind occluders. You can tweak the size of this map inside the render settings and tweak the bias and blur factors per grid inside the probe property tabs. Inside the probe property tab, you will find bias, that is used for reducing self-shadowing, bleed bias, to increase the contrast of the depth test result, blur, that is the amount of blur to apply when filtering the visibility shadow map, does not increase runtime cost but has a small effect on baking time. In some cases, it is useful to limit which objects appear in the light probes capture lighting. For instance, an object that is too close to a capture point may be better excluded. This is what the visibility collection does. Only objects that are in this collection will be visible when this probe will capture the scene. There is also an option to invert this behavior and effectively hide the objects inside this collection. Okay, so now that we know the theory, we can test the irradiance volume's power inside the scene. In order to create one, we have to press Shift A, and inside light probe, we will find it. These are the default values of every irradiance volume probe. So I will bring back my own irradiance volume probe, the one I used for this scene. As you can see, I modified my irradiance volume probe to fit the shape of the room. The default one has a bit of distance already applied. The Falloff is on 100% and the resolution is 4x4x4. So what I did with mine is I removed the distance, I decreased a bit Falloff, and I added an extra sample in each axis for the resolution. I also narrowed the clipping end. You can see these values in the 3D display if you press the viewport display for the influence and for the clipping. So in order to decrease self-shadowing, leak lights, and undesired blur, I tweaked these values. As you can see, by default you have 1 for the bias, nothing for the bleed bias, and a bit of blur. In mine, I decreased the bias down to almost nothing, and also I decreased a bit the blur. So let's remove the default one. Let's go to the scene. And what I did is I free the lighting cache. So what we are gonna see now under the rendering view will be what Eevee shows us as a rendered view without the Irradiance volume probe baked. So let's check. Okay, this is great for previewing the materials, but it doesn't look good at all. So now let's bake the indirect lighting. Well, that's why I say that the Irradiance volume probe is a key player when you want to achieve better results with Eevee. So now you can create an animation and it will be reproduced in real time. Okay, so join me in the next tutorial where we are going to learn about the general settings under the Render tab. And in the third part of this series, we will learn how to add volumetrics and particles to the scene. Besides this series of free tutorials, I'm preparing a full paid course that will cover the entire creation of a complete scene. We will start from the blueprints to a final render. The render engines for the course will be Cycles for final shots and Eevee for previs. We will use Eevee to create some animated scenes that will blow your mind. So let me know in the comments what do you think about it, and follow me in Instagram, Facebook or Twitter, the one you like the most. Okay, so thanks for watching me and have a nice day. Adios.